Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rule Book Room. I'm Har. Today we are discussing a very important and slightly confusing case, Lajja Devi versus State 2012. This case deals with child marriage and tries to answer a simple but uncomfortable question. If child marriage is illegal in India, then why does the law still recognize it in some way? In this episode, I will walk you through the facts, the legal provisions, the court's reasoning, and also loopholes in the law that the court itself points out. Let us begin with the facts. The case started with a letter written by a mother, Lajja Devi. She told the court that her minor daughter, Meera, who was around 13 to 14 years old, had been kidnapped. Based on this, the police registered a case under Section 363 of the Indian Penal Code. However, when the girl was brought before the court, she gave a completely different statement. She said that she was not kidnapped. She had gone with the boy on her own will and had even married him. Now, this created a serious legal problem. The girl was minor, but she was claiming consent and marriage. So the court had to decide several issues. Was this a valid marriage? Did her consent matter? Who should have her custody, her parents or the boy she married? Similar situations came up in other connected cases as well. In all of them, the girls were below 18 years of age, but they claimed they had willingly married. But to this, the court decided to examine the larger legal position on child marriage in India. The court framed important questions. First, what is the legal status of a child marriage? Is it valid, void, or voidable? Second, can a minor choose to live with her husband instead of her parents? Third, who should get custody of such a girl? Fourth, can criminal charges like kidnapping or rape be cancelled if the girl says she consented? These questions required the court to examine different laws together. Now, let us understand the relevant laws which were involved and discussed in this case. First is Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Section 5, Clause 3 of this act says that the minimum age for marriage is 21 for males and 18 for females. However, if this condition is violated, the marriage is not declared void. It is also not declared voidable under Section 11 or 12, respectively. The only consequence is punishment under Section 18, which is quite minor. So, under this act, a child marriage is technically illegal but still legally valid. Second statute which has been discussed in this case is Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, which we can call as PCM Act. This act is very important in this case. Section 2, Clause A defines a child as a male below 21 years and a female below 18 years. Now, the key provisions are Section 3, which deals with voidable marriage, where it says that every child marriage is voidable at the option of the child. This means that the marriage is valid for the time being, but the minor has the right to cancel it. This petition for annulment must be filed within 2 years of attaining majority. Then is Section 12, which deals with void marriage in certain cases. Section 12 says that a child marriage will be completely void if certain serious conditions exist. For example, if the minor was kidnapped or taken away from lawful guardians, or if force, coercion, or trafficking is involved. So, under the PCM Act, most child marriages are voidable, some are void. This creates a layered legal situation. The third enactment that you deal with in this case is Indian Penal Code IPC. Under IPC, if a girl is below 16 years, her consent does not matter. Sexual intercourse is considered rape. However, there is an exception. If the girl is the wife and above 15 years, it is not treated as rape. The court finds this deeply contradictory because the same act is treated differently depending on marriage. Fourth statute that this case discusses is Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act 1956. This act says that the husband is the natural guardian of a minor married girl. But the court clarifies that this is not absolute. The welfare of the child is the most important factor. Now, let us discuss what the court actually decided. The first thing which was decided by the court was the status of child marriage. The court held that child marriage is not automatically void, it is generally voidable under Section 3 of the PCM Act. This means that the marriage continues to exist unless the minor chooses to cancel it. If no action is taken after attaining majority, the marriage becomes fully valid. Second thing which has been held by the court is with regard to the consent of minor. Court clearly states that consent given by a minor, especially below 16 years, is unreliable. Such consent may not be free or it may not be informed. It may be influenced by family pressure, emotional factors, or even social conditions. The third issue which was discussed by the court pertains to custody. The court refused to adopt a fixed rule for custody. Instead, it said that the welfare of the minor is the most important consideration. Depending on the situation, the court may send the girl to her parents or place her in a protective custody, or in rare cases, allow her to stay with the husband. Fourth issue has been dealt by the court is with regard to the criminal cases that were registered against the boys. The court made a distinction based on age. If the girl is below 16 years, consent does not matter, and criminal charges like rape cannot be quashed. But if the girl is above 16 years and has voluntarily gone with the boy, the court may consider her consent and may quash charges depending on the facts. One of the most important parts of this judgment is where court discusses the loopholes in Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006. The court refers to an academic article which highlights three major problems. First loophole is child marriages are only voidable, not void. This means that the marriage continues unless the minor takes legal action. In reality, many girls do not have the awareness, support, or resources to approach a court and get the marriage annulled. The second loophole is there is a confusion about the relationship between the PCM Act and personal laws. Some personal laws and customs still allow child marriage, and the PCM Act does not clearly override all of them in practice. The third loophole is marriage registration is not compulsory everywhere. If registration were mandatory, it would help verify the age of the parties and prevent underage marriages. Because of these loopholes, the court observes that the law does not completely prohibit child marriage, it only discourages it. To conclude, this case shows us a very important reality. Indian law sends mixed signals about child marriage. On one hand, it punishes it. On the other hand, it still recognizes it as legally valid in many situations. The court acknowledges this contradiction and says that the real solution lies with the legislature. The law needs to be clearer and stronger if child marriage is to be truly eliminated. For us as law students, this case is important because it teaches us how different laws interact and how legal systems sometimes struggle to deal with social realities. That's all for today's episode. If you found this helpful, you can revisit the key sections, especially Section 3 and Section 12 of the PCM Act, because they are central to understanding this topic. See you in the next episode. Until then, bye.